Taste funny.
Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of the Taste Funny podcast, in which myself,
Peter McHugh. Wait, what?
I was going to try and do a thing where
you fucked me up.
I was going to try and do a thing where you said my name and I said yours. I should have told you.
You should have. Yeah, you could have warned me first instead of just nodding at me.
Okay,
you dingle.
Right. Well, that's Pete, and I'm Joe. Hello.
Yeah. Hey. How's
nice
it going?
to meet you.
Woo.
And we're going to talk about some music. We're going to review an album
from each other's collections.
Yeah. Should we crack straight on?
Yeah. I don't really need a preamble. So
Lovely.
Let's go.
Awesome. Jingle.
All
right. So what are we talking about this week, Pete?
Well, last time we had a sit down, you recommended me an album by a band with a very silly name. They're called Shrag, and their album is also called Shrag.
It stands for Sussex Heights Roving Artist Group.
It does. I have that written down. It's a great.
That's good.
It's a great little abbreviation there. So they were a post-punk influenced indie pop band, active from around 2003 to around 2013. Sadly now, no more.
I like that you said sadly, because I feel like that's a positive start.
Joe. Here's the thing, right? I feel I've had a few thoughts about this, and one of them, like the first time I listened to this, I was like, "This is like." First of all, I feel like you tried to stitch me up.
Why?
Because
I'm just opening a millionaire shortbread, by the way.
Yeah, crinkly. I feel like you relentlessly take the piss out of me for describing things as warm and fuzzy and. In those sorts of words, and then you've given me an album almost entirely warm and fuzzy garage rock to review, where I'm now going to have to be very careful about how I use the words warm and fuzzy, you bastard.
I don't. It's not a problem that you use those words.
It's just
you say it a lot.
I do overuse it. Right. Here's the other thing. I also feel like this album or this band is what would happen if we were working for a record. Like how they have record companies, and they're like, we invent a band to get the kids in, and so they'll have these parts of this sound and this part, and they put it together, and Linkin Park's what pops out, right? If they did that, except they'd accidentally chosen us to design the band, right. I feel like Shrag is properly what we would have come up with, because there's elements of punk, there's elements of pop, there's elements of sort of noisier, garagey rock styles. There's enough weirdness and eccentricity to keep it interesting. There's synthesizers. It's got a lot going on. I feel like if we'd been jamming and they go, make a good music sound, this might be what we'd do.
Okay.
This is the kind of thing we're like, well, we should have a female singer, yeah, and it should have really warm, fuzzy guitars, because Pete's in the room, and it should have some form, it should be pop sensible enough that people can listen to it, but not so pop sensible that people will be like, ooh, pop music. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is the kind of thing we would end up coming out with.
Yeah.
So
I'm on board with that.
Yeah,
I feel like that sounds like a positive approach so far.
I feel
which
like,
I'm pleased about. I was really unsure about giving you this.
Well, you should have been. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
The album opens up with the song Pregnancy Scene, which I'm going to say right away, really fab bass line on this song. Really fab bass lines throughout, in fact. I'm going to say the word fab bass line just every 2 seconds because every bass line on this album.
Don't bother, I'll just edit it in every really 5 seconds.
Fab bass line, yeah. And the Riot Girl style vocals, which again are very prevalent throughout the album, very polystyrene, X-ray specs for those of you that know your old punk pretty well, but if you don't, and maybe you're thinking Riot Girl, what does that mean? Brat Killer and Bikini Kill, and I feel like maybe even a more apt parallel to this band would be the Bikini Kill follow-up, La Tigra. How do you pronounce that name?
I would have said La Tigra, but I'm not actually familiar with Bikini Kill.
I haven't listened to enough La Tigra to make that comparison. That's the problem. Like, I've listened to a bit of their music, but they sound a lot closer to this than Bikini Kill does. But it's the vocal style specifically, this high, shouty, shrieky female punk vocal, which is it's sort of like almost like a more poppy, watered down version of that style of vocal, but it's still definitely that. It still definitely has those vibes about it, that connotation. And, it's all the warm, fuzzy tones and noisy guitars. This entire track is just, really punky, warm, fuzzy, angry, garagey rock with female vocals. Flipping great.
Yes.
Lyrically wank.
Oh.
lyrically, and this is something that's going to come up really frequently while we talk about this band. I feel like this entire album was written by bratty teenagers.
It basically was.
It basically was. Yeah. In fairness, it was. But I really hope that maybe they matured on their later two albums. Maybe they matured lyrically a bit, because there's points in this album that are really good, and we'll get to that when we get to my favourite bits and my favourite songs. But yeah, just generally overall, I found a lot of the lyrics to be really sort of immature, and if not immature, then just a bit bratty feeling, and it's a real turn off. It really pulls me out of the enjoyment that I'm feeling for almost everything else that's going on. It's my biggest critique overall.
That's interesting.
So,
because to be fair, that's part of what I liked about them. But I can
understand.
But when I first saw this band, though, I was 18 years old.
Yeah,
and I think that's something that, like, I was 18 years old. I'd just split up with. Had I? No, that's not true. I wasn't even 18. I would have been about 16 or 17.
Yeah,
and I was with my sort of then girlfriend, and she was a big Cribs fan, and they were supporting the Cribs.
Okay.
So maybe next week I'll recommend you the other band that I actually did. That was the Thermals. I've never listened to the Thermals, to be fair.
The song "Pregnancy Scene" is about sort of young pregnancy, and it's about the disconnect that you feel when your friends are getting pregnant, and
it's too much too young for the modern generation.
It's too much, but it's not, because it's also like, oh, why are you having kids? Why are you so happy about the fact you've just had a child and it's changed your whole life perspective? And of course it fucking has. You just grew a human. Like, that's such a ridiculous thing to say. That irks me. Maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm too old to hear these lyrics and go, yeah. Maybe if I'd heard them when I was 16, 17, 18, I'd be like, yeah, do you know what? That is bullshit.
Yeah.
What are you doing that for? Stop it. We're not old yet. I am old now. And I'm sad because I don't have children.
Oh, wow.
No, that's not really why I'm sad.
We don't really put this stuff on the podcast.
Well, this is too dark. Track 2! Moving straight on, because I didn't really have a lot to say for that song apart from what I just said. Yeah, I really liked it, but the lyrics were... So, Long Term Monster. The verses in this song leave me so cold, and it's not really to do with the lyrics, although this is another one of those songs where I feel like the lyrics are a bit naff. Yeah. I went to a rubbish school, but it would have been better without you. Okay, great, whatever.
Yeah. To be fair, see, I can find there's a sort of inarticulacy to the lyrics that I like, because they kind of don't fit with how good, like.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's quite hard to get the lyrics right, and they feel very, like you said, they feel like immature.
Yeah.
It feels like the school band.
Yeah.
They feel like your school band.
Yeah. I can imagine them playing the George Basement in my head. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like that.
In fairness, this Long Term Monster is not one of the songs that sort of I would jump to as an example of this. But
it's that particular bit, and it's annoying because the bit before it, I really love the bridge between the verse and the chorus, because the verse and the chorus are a bit meh. There's this lovely little bridge in there with the, I hold a long-term grudge, but you're a long-term monster, and that's really good. It's a really catchy little hook that gets into you, but then it goes into the chorus, which I've already sung a bit of. I went to a rubbish school, and that just immediately kills my music boner. It just goes right straight down, and I just can't get into it. But this entire song is chock full of the warm fuzziness, which has already been alluded to. The bass line's super distorted. Everything's really crunchy and angry sounding, and it, again, just a lovely piece of sort of bob your head, light punk elements and garage rock, just really catchy as well. I know every single frigging chorus. I know most of the verses, and I can sing them, and I noticed this on the way up in the car because I didn't realise I did until I was driving up here today to do this, and I found myself singing along in the car, and I was going, oh fuck, I actually know this album quite well, it turns out now. Excellent. At this point I've got that far into it.
Probably not better than I do at this stage, because it's been years since I've properly listened to it. Yeah. Actually, it's not even my favourite Shrag album, actually.
Really thundering, distorted bass guitar, some nice little synth parts. Again, just that lyrical immaturity, just killing my musical boner. So, track 3. The Lost Dog. Lost Dog is what the track's called. Great opening riff, and it's they really love the distorted drums on this track. They're really, really good. But what the heck's going on with that opening vocal, Joe? Can we just have a little clip of it?
And your years of tragedy red, and the mess you made of it dead, an excuse in red, history dead, and you lie your way out of it. The 90s crashing, the crashing buses, soap opera, us your security blanket. You're so lost and you whine and fuss, never made much fuss or asked for more than this.
Am I on the beat or not? I don't know. She's like all over the place. She doesn't really. She never hits the pocket, and the delivery's a bit weird. And it's just, I'm like,
but it just see, but that again, that for me is just a big. That's a big yes because it's all.
I know you like.
It's very
you like your
rough.
immediate rough.
It's very
stuff.
rough.
Yeah. And I do
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But for whatever reason, that it just hits the ear all wrong.
To be fair, when it sounds like he's making a mistake rather than just
and that's
intentionally.
It doesn't throw the song off completely. This song has another one of those just insanely catchy choruses that this band seem to be really excellent little earworms that will get stuck in your head for a bit, and it ends up being another great just example of good garagey punk rock from this album, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. This track gets a love heart. It gets a little love heart for the chorus purely just on the strength of the chorus on this track alone. Really good.
Excellent.
I enjoyed.
I'm very glad to hear
the
that.
tits out of it. Talk to the left.
Love this song.
This was your clip, wasn't it?
It was my clip.
It was.
You can also
much,
clip it if you like it.
Much like when I was like, why, Joe, did you pick that song for the clip last time?
Okay, if
Showing
we
on
want
Tempo.
to.
I was like, why, Joe?
Okay, well, because I actually think this is a very formative song for me because
Okay.
it's very. Because again, we have to bear in mind, I think, that this was we're talking 2000
decades of
2005,
decade ago, over a
2006.
decade.
So when what I found appealing about this is because we've talked before about how my taste in women mainly involves women who could beat me in a fight, and I find something very attractive and quite sexy and appealing about the idea of someone being very dominant and a bit like of knowing what they're after. Basically, I find that interesting, and I think this is the song that after seeing them live, this really stuck in my head because I remember thinking, "Oh, that's really sexy."
Yeah.
And it's really sexy. She's just being like, "Oh, fuck you! Don't be ridiculous.
Stop using dirty talk."
To be fair, also, I mean, you know me quite well, Pete. It's entirely plausible. This is a situation I could find myself in. Stop talking. Get on with it. It's not.
Want to feel what you're doing, not hear the commentary.
It's a great little bit.
It's a synth pop song. They wrote a synth pop song and they just jammed it in there as if we wouldn't notice. Here are three opening songs that are all fairly garage rocky with a little bit of synth, and we're just going to stick a synth pop song in and hope you don't notice.
So is your issue that
No, it's not that it's a synth pop song. It's fine. Musically, this song's pretty sound. My problem, yet again, comes back to the lyricism, which is less bad on this song. It feels, this song's funny.
Yeah.
And it is, and it's quite good, and I do know all the words to it, and I do sing it loudly in the car. But I'm like, does it fit with the rest of the? I don't know if it fits. I feel like it's a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and it's not a bad song. It's a weird fit, and I feel it's their first album. It's the collection. Like we always say this, a band's first album is like the anthology of everything they've done since they were 13.
Yeah, exactly.
They wrote all these songs and they were quite good.
It's why the second album's so difficult because you've got to write all of you've got to repeat what you've been doing, but you've had about 10 years for the previous one.
Yeah. So I feel like this is maybe just like when it's a really good song, doesn't quite fit. Bugger it. Track 4. Yeah. It'll be track 4, and we'll get on with it. So the other thing is the delivery of the lyrics as well, or the delivery of the vocals rather. It's a little it's like a half rap. It's funny. I just don't gel with it. I just don't. Maybe it's something about the writing that I just don't gel with. But
that is the most positive you've been about any of the lyrics so far.
Lyrically, like I said, the thing is I really love the music, and I can't get away from it. It's catchy. It gets under my skin. Anyway, great song. If you want to have a bit of a giggle at a silly song about, how you shouldn't do dirty talk while you're shagging.
Yeah.
That's what that song's about. It's
Yeah.
great. Different Glue. I don't understand the song title. I mean, I understand it because they say it multiple times in the song, but I mean, I don't understand where the glue comparison comes into things. It really fab opening bass riff, but much like the last time I went, what the heck's going on with them vocals there? The vocals are really out of time, and the guitar is also out of time with the bass and the drums, and it feels really rough and not in a good way to me. It might feel good to you. To me, it feels really janky. I just can't. It just bothers me, and I can't really decide if I like it or not. It just ends up feeling sloppy. The chorus, again, these guys are great at a catchy chorus, and it is a very catchy chorus. And the creepy way that you appropriate lies, it's a strange thing to do. It's a strange... Yeah, great. Really fucking good. Love that.
Yeah, to be fair, the vocals, generally speaking, it's literally just... It just feels like Bratty is exactly...
Bratty.
I don't think I'd put my finger on that before, but Bratty is exactly how I would describe
it. It's 100%
just
bratty.
Shouting, just like proper foot stamping, like it's... But again, I think as well, I feel like this would have been very... For me, coming across these guys would have been something that was very. I don't think I was into a lot of female-fronted pop at the time.
Yeah,
and it's now. I think, and I might be wrong about this, but I think we've had quite. We've definitely
had a few.
I feel like it's probably been most of it actually.
Yeah,
I think there's at
least 3 albums that I can think of.
At least 3, so
2 that you've given me and 1 I've given you.
Yeah, and. It's been pretty like
pervasive.
We've both talked before about how much we
love female-fronted bands.
Band,
sure.
And I think these would have been one of the first examples of a band where I went,
okay.
Oh yeah, that's really nice.
That's really good.
And because I think it's a different voice. It's not what you're used to hearing.
It's also not a particularly typical female-fronted vocal style.
No.
This is definitely, like I say, the polystyrene school of polystyrene. I should stress the gap there in poly and styrene, so it doesn't sound like I'm talking about a lump of insulation. Polystyrene school of singing, which was later adopted by these riot girl acts in America more so than in England, and people like Bikini Kill and Brat Killer. And to a lesser extent, Jack Off Jill and the name of the band who I'm actually going to recommend you one day, who've completely gone out of my head, that people constantly tell me are not a real Riot Girl band, but I don't care because they're good.
Oh, I heard of one the other day called Hands Off Gretel.
Hands Off Gretel, nice.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
The thing about those bands, though, polystyrene especially, and Bikini Kill and Brat Killer, is the way they delivered that shouty vocal was with some real authoritative action behind it. It's not a bratty thing. It's a fucking angry feminist thing, and it's pissed off about it. It's mad, and that it's pissed off and mad about it is what I was trying to go for there. They are pissed off and mad about it, and it feels different. This feels like the same sort of intonation, but being sung by like I say, some bratty little grotty teenager from the south of England.
You know what it is? It feels like basically the formative years of those bands. It feels like it's the Muppet Babies of Riot Girl bands.
I'm really gonna have to listen to their later stuff because
I'll lend you them both when we get back to my house.
No, I'll find them. But
you can get them quite cheap on eBay. The version I have is a press copy of the second album.
Jeez.
I think the third album I have listened to a lot. The second album, for some reason, hasn't gripped me as much.
Okay. But I mean, I'm really hoping
I'll gladly
mature a little.
They do.
Lyrically,
I think
hopefully.
So.
Because I think if they manage to pull that trick off, then they've got me. Then they've got me hook, line and sinker all the way.
Doesn't matter now, they split up on it. So,
So where were we? We've done Talk to the Left. We've done Different Glue, most of it. Okay, I was just going to say, at the end of Different Glue, there's on the last chorus, there's a guitar riff. It's just this big, noisy guitar riff that really cohesively pulls all the things that sound crap in the opening, the bit I was complaining about. That one riff, it just cohesively pulls everything together, and suddenly it sounds really good. And I don't really understand how they did that, but it's quite clever, and I enjoyed it. So, y'all. 45s. Guess you know where this is going.
Oh, mate.
I don't like this much. The lyrics bother me. The delivery is nice, but again, I ended up feeling like the lyrics are very immature, and the melancholy tone of the track just nothing to draw me in further, although I do like the organ.
That's what she said.
Oh, also the drum tone. I enjoyed the drum tone on that track. It's got a really punchy, just super compressed. There's a little section where it's just the drums, and it's really nice and really fat sounding. And I go, ooh, that's nice. From a production standpoint, that's very nice. But yeah, because this whole track again, it's about like, you liked some music, but then, we fell out, and now I can't really listen to that band anymore because they remind me of you. So now I've got all these records I don't want to listen to anymore because of you.
Oh mate, I'll tell you what. I remember this is. Do you want to hear? This is pathetic.
Yeah.
So friend of the podcast, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hey Tina.
Thanks for listening. It's nice that someone is.
Only people that do.
But when I hope she won't mind me divulging this, but when we broke up a few years ago, because we had been previously together. A few years ago. We're talking like literally
over a decade.
Fuck me. Well,
way over a decade.
Nearly 2 decades, to be fair. But when we split up, I remember feeling like, because I had that feeling of not wanting to listen to music, but it wasn't to do with specifically music we had listened to together, because actually she was definitely very justified in breaking up with me. We never hung out at all. I barely spoke to her. It was that sort of, it was it was a primary school relationship predominantly. But I remember being in one night and knowing from the media, like knowing from films and that I should be really, I was really sad. I was really gutted. You bastard. But no, I was proper gutted at the time. But then I remember thinking, I should be like, I don't want to listen to anything that makes me happy. I remember turning off Punk Ass Bitch from Wheatus's first album and being like, I can't even listen to this song. I enjoy it. I don't want to feel any enjoyment.
I don't want to feel joy.
I don't want to feel any joy.
I don't feel sadness.
This is bullshit. So yeah, again, going back to their lyrical immaturity, I feel like that's part of the charm.
I feel like
that it's totally like it's that sort of childish, that childish inarticulacy, that frustration of, I would imagine it feels frustrated. It feels frustrated at having so much to say and so little ways to say it. But I totally get why listening to it for the first time
now, as a fully formed adult person, man.
Yeah. I mean,
almost
you're selling yourself a bit strongly there, aren't you? But okay, fair enough.
All right, a mostly fully formed adult potato. New favourites. You wanna take a stab at where I'm going with this?
I feel like it's going to be very similar to the rest of the review.
Well done, you. Vocals on this track are really good.
All right, okay.
The vocals, not the lyrics. The vocals.
Right, okay.
The vocals are very good. I enjoy the vocals on this track. I enjoy the really urgent, noisy guitar riff and the insanely.
You're not allowed to say urgent. That's my word.
Insanely.
You say warm and
chorus.
fuzzy, and I say urgent.
Sorry, and the really catchy chorus, and it is catchy. I know that you got your new favourites. Well, you never. I used to be your favourite. But, of course, it's let down by the lyrics again, which again, this is a song about having a friend who got some new friends and you paid off about it. Like, come on, this is school shit.
Yeah. It's a very
and also, there's some weird, slightly stalkery things happening in these lyrics as well. Like the second verse, particularly, she's like, "I bought all the foods that you recommended, and I went to your house while you were there, and I stared in through the window," kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, you're mad. Got it. Stay away from that girl. Intelligent theft.
I like this one.
I like this one.
Yes.
I love the guitars. And the bass tones into this track, again, really nice and noisy and distorted and warm and fuzzy and all those words that I like to use when I'm describing big, warm, fuzzy things. I feel the vocals are a bit of a letdown, again. And this time it's the delivery of the vocals, not the lyrics, because the lyrics are actually not terrible. They have their moments of being absolute dog. But for the most part, this is quite a funny song that's well written about trying to nick stuff when you're a teenager.
I think they're funnier songs. I think the songs where they're consciously very funny are the better ones, as a general rule. Like
and people are probably thinking, God, Jesus, Joe's rabbited on for hours for about each song. These songs are insanely short.
Yeah,
they are.
Really short
most
album.
of them are sub 3 minutes. I listened to the entire album and had change on the way up here. I was like, oh crikey, that is fast.
Yeah.
It is a very. I was actually having trouble getting my notes down before the song's finished. Like, I was having to pause and keep typing, and I've not really written a great deal. Like that's how quick these really, really snappy little tracks. So, Cupboard Love. This is what's getting my clip, by the way.
Okay.
Cupboard Love is what's getting my
Should
clip.
we play a little clip now before we start?
Yeah, just give me the first verse of Cupboard Love, because the vocal intonation on that first verse is so good.
Now it's all ending and we're feeling old. We're passing up a chance of real kid kindness. And you liked it in the spring, you were so hard done by. Put me in your house with your cupboard love. Oh, sweet actress in your mouth perfume. Did you grow up thinking that love was a menu? And I'd like to take you home, but it's still so shameful. I hate it in your house, hate your cupboard love. How much do you earn? How much do you earn?
How much do you earn? Yeah, you can have a bit of a chance of that, you know?
Yeah.
How much do you earn? But I don't understand what the fuck Cupboard Love is. I'm so perplexed by what the song's actually about. There's a bit in the second one, she goes, "You're looking so nice, you were so medieval, sitting in your house with your cupboard love." Well, I don't know what the fuck Cupboard Love
can't really
is.
help you there, I'm
Cupboard Love. So yeah, I'm really into the singing. I really am into the vocals on this track. And I have no idea what it's about, but it's catchy. It's catchy. It's got some lovely little, really distorted synthy stylophone, maybe, as we've just been chatting on about there. Got bits in it, and there's some obvious mistakes in the playing as well, which add a lot of character to it. But what the shit's Cupboard Love? Yeah,
Maybe it's just really loves a cupboard.
I've also just specifically pointed out that I really like the really discordant guitars on the bridge towards the end that lead into a noisy crescendo by the end of the track. It's really good. Track 10.
Yeah.
Intro.
Yeah. It's a good title for a song that's track 10, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Why?
It's a fucking edgy title for a song that's track 10. It's like, oh, look, we did a thing.
It's funny.
No.
It's funny.
It's trying too hard.
It's funny.
I think it's trying too
From
hard.
15 years ago.
I think this falls into the same thing as the rest of the problems.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing we'd have done when we were 16 and we wrote an album.
Yeah.
If we wrote an album when we were 16,
I
what do you
think
want to
you're
call
being
track
very
10?
harsh on
We
them,
should
given that they
call it
actually probably
Intro.
literally were 16.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying... Look, I have to judge this as me now.
But are you not in touch with enough with that bit of yourself?
No, he was a prick, and I think anybody
Well,
who's
yeah,
too in touch with that thing is probably also
No,
still
don't get me
a prick.
wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big subscriber to the idea that if you don't think you 5 years ago was a dick, then you're still a dick.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've probably said that before.
Yeah, almost
But
certainly.
but like if I'm like my nieces and nephews and stuff, and they're all like they're getting to the age now where they need to I try and keep in touch with that part of myself and try and remember what that was like and try and feel the feelings. Like I still probably, because I haven't quite grown up, I've got a bit of Peter Pan syndrome going on, but like I think I can, again, maybe it's because I heard this for the first time at the time, maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I think...
I mean, I had the listening to these songs. I didn't actually own this album until about 2 years ago. I listened to it all on MySpace.
I think I like I say, I'm judging it from this position of me now, and I think if I'd heard it when I was younger, I'd probably have had a different opinion. It's just that looking at this now, I'm just like, it's a little cringy to me.
And if that were the case, if you'd loved it then, you'd love it now.
Yeah, because nostalgia.
Because
yeah,
nostalgia,
I don't hate it now. I just find it a little cringe. At points, it's a nice little bit of synth rock, but there's nothing really to talk about with it.
Okay.
It's just nice. It's a
That's
nice
fine.
little bit of instrumental rock that happens.
Yeah.
And it's called Intro. And annoyingly, it would have been a really good intro track if they hadn't put it 10th.
I sometimes wonder if there was a mix-up.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the story?
Especially because if I shuffle this album, because stupid Android media player, you can either, if you hit the play button on the artist, instead of just playing chronologically through the artist, it shuffles the artist.
Oh, okay. That's
so
annoying.
I keep, because I've only got the one Shrag album,
Yeah.
Sometimes I go hit play and I'm like, oh, why is it not playing the album in the correct order? And it's because it's shuffled it. But the track it plays first, if I shuffle it, is always intro. Every time.
Really?
Every friggin' time.
That's interesting.
Because it shuffles in a preordained order.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, track 10 was first.
That's weird.
So, this is my favourite track, Mark E. Smith.
Okay.
I didn't realise
That's
it was
great.
my favourite track until this morning, but it is.
Okay.
Because before I was like, well, it's probably Cupboard Love. It's probably Cupboard Love, and if it's not Cupboard Love, then it's either Lost Dog or Pregnancy Scene or Long Term Monster. One of those probably is up there. But then when I was listening through it this morning, or when I was driving in the car, I was really getting into Mark E. Smith, and as you can see, it got 2 love hearts while I was doing my notes.
Okay,
so I was well happy with it. This is some of the best lyricism on the
Yeah.
album, hands down. Basically a song about not being a hipster twat.
Yeah.
And you know, Mark E. Smith being the lead singer of The Fall.
Well, a band I
British.
literally know nothing about, by the
Me
way.
either.
And I really feel like I should.
I only know it because I researched it,
Yeah.
but I know that they're a post-punk band, English post-punk band, and I knew more about him than I knew
Yeah.
about his band.
I feel like they're the sort of band that people who like music or like who are interested in
Music wankers.
music wankers basically.
Us.
It feels like I should like The Fall.
Yeah.
And I've never, because I don't know where to fucking start. It's like with the Terry Pratchett Discworld novels. I
Right.
don't know where to start. I've never actually read one,
Yeah.
and it feels like it's too much now.
You just need an in, really.
Yeah, I need someone to go, this is the one you need to listen to
Yeah,
start with.
yeah, you
Because
do.
they've got about 20,000 albums and twice as many drummers and 100 other bass players and
Yeah,
guitarists
yeah.
and keyboard players and
It's
whatever.
It's all just Mark. E.
It's
Smith.
I like the idea of The Fall. Like I like that. Was it a couple of years ago? Because obviously he's dead now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Very recently. But like he was it at Glastonbury or some festival? He appeared on stage with a massive piss stain on his trousers, and nobody was quite sure if it was just because he was a bit old and fucked, or if it was like a joke, and no one quite knew. And I suspect he's obviously never addressed it because he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But I like him as a character.
So.
Sorry, I've gone
No,
off
no, it's
on
all
one
right. We're
bit.
talking about Mark E. Smith. So the song, Mark E. Smith. The catchiest bass line on the album, Commence.
I'm Debbie! Eureka the museum at night. We'll have to check you out if you question the truth. And you suspect me too, well maybe you're right. It's a skin sensation. We're purer than our mothers could be. And I'm so glad you like me. I like you very much. Get that Yankee feeling for free. And this Mark E. Smith was coming to town.
So yeah, really fab vocals, just owning that Riot Girl sound. Because there's two female vocalists in this band, and I'm never sure which one of them's singing, but whoever did this one, she nailed it down. She nailed it right down for this track, and it's the best example of that sound, like how the closest thing to sounding like I want it to sound in my head.
Yeah.
You know, when I think about it, or think about that sort of sound, the chorus is incredibly catchy, just completely influenza catchy. Because I was driving up
I've
here,
had my jab.
pumping my fist in the air, shouting if Mark E. Smith was coming to town. You know, Mark E. Smith was coming to town.
To town.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, straight away. Just so.
I might put it in the car on the way home.
So flipping catchy. And it's all helped along by this really soaring, beautiful synth line that's in there underneath the chorus, which is just so good. Now we've got to go to my least favourite track on the entire
All right,
album.
okay.
Hopelessly Wasted. And before I start, I want to say that this track is not my least favourite track because it's bad. It's not my least favourite track because it's poorly written. It's not my least favourite track because the lyrics are immature and bratty, because they're not. They're really sincere, and they are really, really painful for me at this point in my life.
'Cause of the
They
divorce.
genuinely...
Just felt like I had to throw that in.
just throw that in there, that Pete's life's on fire. And it has been since we started this podcast. It's not exactly a recent
To be
development.
fair, I have. I
It's
think I
been
don't know if I've
nearly-
stated publicly, but
You did. When we opened the podcast.
no, I know that I've
it
stated,
was-
but no, it's basically just so
this
that
is just
I
a distraction for me, basically.
I can keep. I'm always so I keep check on you so that I know that you haven't killed yourself and your dog.
I wouldn't kill the dog.
Well, so you just leave her to eat your corpse as
Yeah.
you.
Well, this is what I was saying the other day. I was talking about. I was like, well, how long do you think it would take them to find me, and how much of my face would need to be in? But you know.
Yeah.
I hate that it makes me feel things.
Yeah.
It's super not okay.
Do you know what it is? I was listening to the album after I gave it to you because I don't remember it that well. I love it. I know I like it, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I listened to it and I went, I've been a bad friend.
That's a bad one. I did wonder if this entire thing was just like you having a dig.
No, I genuinely.
45 is a song about, palming off music that you no longer like anymore. And the general bratty content of it.
Would your former partner though have been into much of the stuff that you were into?
Absolutely not.
No, so hopefully you haven't
No,
ruined too much
no, I
music.
didn't. I was more thinking of me and you in that
Oh,
scenario.
right, okay.
Like, not that we'd ever had a
Well, if
falling
we've
out.
fallen out, so
No, not like
No.
that. Just never mind. It's,
Oh, right, okay,
It's
no,
not the
no.
point. So yeah, really lovely little like dubby drums. They've added a bit of the delay there. That's nice. And it's a very emotional, piece of music, and as I've already just said, it's some of the most mature writing on the album, and it's a real standout of a little melodic synth piece. Lovely little xylophone synth in the back end there really pulls the whole thing together like a rug, like a really nice rug. And
I love that you specified a nice rug.
a really nice rug. Well, it really tied the room together. And it makes me sad in my soul. just brutal sad. Like, because it's so relevant to me at this point. I'm just like, oh no. And we briefly talked about this while we were sat outside a pub earlier, and I mentioned the fact that, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm noticing these things about myself now in retrospect, like this third person retrospect, and that song just sort of compounds that really badly.
I feel really bad
thank
now.
you prick.
Excellent.
So final closing thoughts. Musically, I can't fault them. I really enjoy it. Lyrically, it's a product of how old they were. It's a product of the era it was written, and if I'd heard it then, like we've said, I'd probably feel quite differently about it. As I'm coming to it fresh as a full-grown human potato man, it feels a bit cringy. The songwriting feels a bit stunted in a lot of areas, and I can't commit fully to enjoying it because it's like it's pulling me out of the enjoyment of the songs. And like I say, I intend to listen to the rest of their stuff, and if the songwriting improves, they'll be great. They'll be a really good band that I will signpost people to and be like, hey, they're really good.
Yeah.
I just really hope that happens.
Well, we'll report back on that. Shrag watch.
Shrag watch.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for
hang on
for that, Pete.
Yeah.
Jingle. So what are we talking about next time, Pete?
So, I'm going to recommend you a bit of an odd album. I'm going to recommend you something I've actually only listened to fairly recently, but has become fully entrenched into my body. It's from a genre that I already enjoyed, and I just never listened to this band, and that was apparently a terrible mistake. So originally I was going to recommend you an album by a band called Conan.
I'm familiar with Conan vaguely.
Really?
Not to listen to, but
yeah. I mean, you've maybe seen my T-shirt. I've got
That's
a very nice Conan
That's
T-shirt.
probably what I'm thinking of.
And they are a doom metal band. So doom metal being that's what spawned directly from the loins of Sabbath.
Yes.
But has evolved very much
I'm
over
saying
the years.
yes, as though I know.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, Sabbath are the sort of originators of that style of metal. It's evolved a lot since then. It doesn't really sound like Sabbath anymore, but it's Sabbath are like ground zero for doom metal, and Conan in particular are a stoner doom band. They are famed for their very low tunings and their ability to sort of bludgeon you to death with their instruments like a blunt force weapon. And that's why I was going to give you it, because I was like, it's a heavy album. It's an incredibly heavy album, but it's a very different heavy from, say, Cattle Decapitation, who are all about the speed and the surgical precision. Yeah. This is more just an hour of somebody braying you over the head with a guitar. And I was going to give you Conan, and I really love Conan. And then I listened to my first Yob album. Yob. And they changed my perspective on what good means for doom metal. They changed it irreversibly now, and I can never really go back. And I still like Conan, but now I see why people were maybe a little bit like, Conan are a bit sort of, they're good and they're really heavy, but... So, the album I'm going to give you is Clearing the Path to Ascend by Yob.
Right.
It was genuinely a bit of a life-changing experience for me listening to this album. So, and it wasn't that long ago, it was months ago. It's that fairly recent.
Okay.
And I've since listened to like 3 more of their albums. I was that enamoured with them. So, like I say, it's going to be it's going to be heavy, no doubt about it. It's not going to be quite Conan, but it's going to be real heavy. But it's going to be heavy in a completely different way to anything I've given you up until this point. This is going to be less of a sort of death by 1,000 cuts and more death by one big rock that's going to flatten you.
Right, well, that's a truly exciting experience to look forward to.
It's like this is something you're going to have to immerse yourself in, though.
Okay.
The track has 4 songs on it.
Right.
And it's just under an hour in length.
Okay.
Just a smidge.
Wow.
So you've got 2 15-minuters, a 10-minuter, and a 20-minuter.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they are long-ass songs. And I recommend you listen to it in order, in its entirety. And probably, because it does fall under the stoner metal, stoner doom subgenre. It's stoner doom and sludge. There's a bit of sort of sludge metal mixed into the orb sound.
We're into genre.
Yeah,
Again,
genre
aren't we? It's
wanking. I
confusing.
know. It doesn't mean
I
much to you, but it does.
don't
It does.
understand
It does to me. And I recommend sort of maybe a little bit of a numbing agent, whatever your choice is. Obviously, like I said, the genre's called stoner doom, but that doesn't mean you got to smoke pot to listen to it. Have a few fingers of whiskey,
Okay.
you know, and then just recline yourself in a quiet space with your headphones on. And I know this is going to be. I know what I'm asking of you is like the most difficult thing in the world right now.
Sure.
Find a space where your 2-year-old isn't and won't bother you for an hour.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
You know, go to the forest.
I'll just I'll put it on it for bedtime.
I'm sure he'll love it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'll look forward to that then.
Yeah.
We'll chat about that in a little while.
Cool.
Well, thanks very much for listening, guys, and we'll speak to you next time. Cheers.
Bye.
Today's Funny Podcast was presented and devised by Peter McHugh and Joe McLachlan. Music was by The X-Towels.